The first time Daniel Harper saw Venice, it felt unreal, like a city borrowed from a dream and placed gently on water. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting soft gold across the canals, and the buildings seemed to breathe history with every reflection. Daniel stood at the edge of a narrow bridge, hands in his coat pockets, absorbing the quiet before the city fully woke. He had come to Venice alone. At 36, Daniel was successful by most American standards. He was an architect from Boston, respected in his field, financially secure, and endlessly busy. Yet beneath the carefully built life was an emptiness he hadn't been able to design away. After a long engagement ended 2 years earlier, Daniel buried himself in work, telling himself he didn't need anything more. But something inside him disagreed. Venice was supposed to be a pause, 3 weeks away from deadlines, expectations, and the noise of his everyday life. He told himself it was just research, inspiration for a new project focused on historic preservation. Deep down, though, he hoped the city might give him something he couldn't name. That same morning, across the city, Elena Rossi opened the shutters of her small apartment near Campo Santa Margherita. Cool air rushed in, carrying the scent of water and stone. She leaned against the window frame, watching a gondola glide silently below. Elena had lived in Venice her entire life. At 34, she worked as an art conservator for a local museum, specializing in Renaissance paintings. She loved her work deeply, the patience it required, the intimacy of restoring beauty layer by layer. Yet she often felt like Venice itself, admired, photographed, but rarely truly seen. Her last relationship had ended quietly, without drama or betrayal. Just a slow realization that love alone wasn't enough when dreams moved in different directions. Since then, Elena had chosen independence. She filled her days with work, evenings with books, and weekends with long walks through neighborhoods tourists never found. She wasn't looking for love. That afternoon, fate or Venice decided otherwise. Daniel wandered without a map, letting narrow streets pull him forward. He crossed small bridges, followed the echo of footsteps, and turned corners that revealed sudden beauty. Hidden courtyards, laundry swaying above canals, old women chatting from open windows. He stopped outside a modest gallery, drawn by a painting displayed in the window. It depicted Venice at dusk, the water painted in soft blues and silvers, the sky heavy with emotion. The brushwork felt intimate, almost personal. "You like it?" Daniel turned. A woman stood beside him, holding a set of keys. She had dark hair pulled into a loose bun, wisps framing her face, and eyes the color of warm amber. She wore a simple coat dusted with paint marks. "It feels alive," Daniel said honestly, "like the city is remembering something." A small smile touched her lips. "That's what the artist wanted." "You know them?" "I restored it," she replied, unlocking the door. "I'm Elena." "Daniel," he said, shaking her hand. "I'm visiting." "Everyone is," she said lightly, stepping inside. "But you're welcome to look." Inside, the gallery was quiet and intimate. Daniel followed Elena as she moved with practiced familiarity, explaining the stories behind the works, who painted them, what they meant, how Venice had changed and stayed the same. He found himself listening, not just to her words, but to the rhythm of her voice. There was something grounding about her presence, something that made the city feel less overwhelming and more personal. They talked longer than either expected. When Daniel finally glanced at his watch, He was surprised by the hour. "I didn't mean to take up your afternoon." Elena smiled. Venice teaches patience and conversation. Outside, the sky had begun to soften into evening. "Can I buy you a coffee?" Daniel asked, almost without thinking. "As thanks?" Elena hesitated only a moment. "All right, but not coffee. Spritz." They sat beside a canal, glasses glowing orange in the fading light. Boats passed slowly, water lapping against stone. Tourists drifted by, unaware of the quiet moment unfolding. "So," Elena said, "what brings you to Venice, really?" Daniel considered lying, offering a polished answer about architecture and research. Instead, he surprised himself. "I think I needed to feel something again," he said quietly. Elena studied him, her expression thoughtful, not judgmental. "Venice has a way of doing that," she replied. From that evening on, they began to find each other. Sometimes it was intentional, a message, a planned walk. Other times it felt accidental, as if the city itself nudged them together. They explored early mornings when the streets belonged to locals, shared long dinners tucked away from crowds, and talked about everything from childhood memories to quiet fears. Daniel spoke of his career, of designing buildings that people admired but never loved the way they loved old places like Venice. Elena spoke of preserving art, of holding history in her hands, and feeling the weight of time. With her, Daniel felt seen, not as an achievement, but as a man still searching. With him, Elena felt heard, not as a caretaker of the past, but as someone with her own unfinished story. One evening, they took a gondola ride, not as tourists, but as two people savoring the silence. The water reflected the stars, and the city felt hushed, as if listening. "I used to think love had to be loud," Daniel said. "Grand gestures, big promises." "And now?" Elena asked softly. "Now I think it'd be quiet," he said. "Steady. Like this." She reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining naturally, without hesitation. But Venice, for all its beauty, is also a city of impermanence. Daniel's return flight loomed closer with each passing day. Neither of them spoke of it at first, choosing instead to live inside the moment. But the weight of time pressed gently, insistently. The night before his departure, rain fell softly over the city. They stood under an archway, listening to the sound echo through stone. "I don't want this to end," Elena said. "Neither do I," Daniel replied. "But I don't know what comes next." They were honest with each other, about distance, about fear, about the risk of hope. Love, they realized, wasn't just about feeling. It was about choice. "I could come back," Daniel said. "Or you could visit. We could try." Elena searched his face. "Trying means we might fail." "Yes," he said, "but not trying means we already have." She leaned into him, resting her forehead against his chest. The rain continued to fall, but neither moved. The morning Daniel left, Venice glowed with soft light. They walked together to the Vaporetto stop, hands clasped tightly. "This city gave me more than I expected," Daniel said. "It gave me you." Elena smiled through tears. "It gave me courage." They kissed, not with desperation, but with promise. Months passed. They wrote, called, visited when they could. There were challenges, missed flights, long nights, moments of doubt. But there was also growth. Daniel began designing differently, inspired by the human warmth of Venice. Elena accepted a fellowship in New York, restoring Italian works abroad. The distance slowly shrank. 1 year after their first meeting, Daniel stood once again on a bridge in Venice. This time, He wasn't alone. Elena stood beside him, her hand in his, the city shimmering below. "Same place," she said softly. "Different us," he replied. Venice whispered around them, water and stone bearing witness to a love that had crossed oceans. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with quiet strength. And this time, they knew it wasn't just a moment. It was a beginning.